Alright guys, welcome back to part 2. In this part we're going to be going over how to create the leaves for the bamboo plant. And then we're also going to be fixing up the actual bamboo shafts themselves. So, yeah, really quick, let's just get that out of the way. So we're just going to take each one of these shafts and then just close the ends right here so we can do it easily. Do that pretty quick. Oh, you know what I forgot? Let's put my screencast keys on. There we go. Okay, so now let's just close these ends up. This is a fairly straightforward process. Okay, two more. And last one. Okay, perfect. Nice and simple. Alright, cool. So now that's out of the way. Let's move these to a second layer. Oh, and one last thing. If you guys notice, I did add a second little notch in here between these two and these two. Before there was nothing there. Yeah, I just sort of felt. I know last time I said that it'd be okay to have that blank space. This is just more of a personal choice. I felt that it looked better with these two additional notches right there. So really, that's your call. I just wanted to include those in mine. Okay, so let's move to a second layer. Let's go top view, and I'm going to not do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is minimize all this, and then drag this image of a plant that I have, which you can download at Polygon, a plug for Andrew Price's website. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it as is, but you can always scale it down. One thing I am gonna do, however, is move it in the Y direction up to the origin point, just so like the root or the base of that leaf is at the origin point, just to keep things easier for when we go to actually move and edit and create more leaves, to create the little arms that come off the bamboo leaves. Okay, so to get us started, I'm going to add a plane, and let's scale it up. Now go into wireframe and move it to about the center of the leaf right here. Okay, and then basically all we're going to do is just trace this leaf essentially. So something like that, and then just add edge loops as we need geometry, and then basically, here we go, and just work our way up the leaf until we get a broad or a rough shape of what the leaf is going to look like essentially. Okay. I think we do a couple more, something like that. Okay, something like that looks good, and then just add some extra edge loops right here, just to get a nice even dispersion of geometry. And then let's do the same for the bottom here. And then for this, I'm not going to worry about following the curvature so much, because that's going to be done. We're gonna be modifying the shapes of these in a later state, so don't worry about this little curve right here. Okay. Cool. So now we have that. Then what I'm going to do now is add a couple more edge loops in here. 2 should be sufficient. You don't want to go overkill since these are going to be duplicated a lot. You want to try to keep this low res. There, something like that should be adequate. If you add 3 edge loops, that should be plenty. All right. So now what I'm going to do is take the edges of this leaf essentially, and you can do this by pressing Alt Shift and then clicking on a segment, and then that's going to select all the vertices in that loop. And actually, I don't want these. All I want is the main body itself, because what we're going to do is just, we're basically going to turn on proportional editing, and then gradually bring those vertices upwards in the z-axis, and then just get that nice subtle curve that the plant leaves have. So we can do that. So let's turn on our proportional editing by pressing O. Now let's bring these up in the z-axis ever so slightly. Something like that. Then if we want, we can possibly smooth it a little bit. And then one more time, just bring that up, just to get a nice roundish. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty decent to me. Alright, so from here, we're actually gonna keep that as it is because we're gonna come back to it. But basically, what we're gonna create now is the actual little the arms as sorts. I don't know if you can see that right here. Essentially, this part right here. That's gonna be our base for our leaves, like where they're gonna attach to, essentially. So let's go hop back into our scene, and this is really simple. All we're gonna do here is just add a circle. 32 should be fine, but I'm gonna knock it down to 16 just to save on poly count. Okay, now just rotate along the y-axis, and then just extrude that. Helpful tip: make sure you're in edit mode before you start extruding. Okay, so let's just bring this out something, I don't know, along that lines. Now to get like a nice flowy arc, what we're gonna do is use the spin tool. And if you're not familiar with the spin tool, basically what that does is it takes into account where the pivot point, or where the 3D cursor is, essentially, and then it'll use that as a pivot point, and then it will rotate the select vertices that you have around that pivot point. And I can show you that really quick. So if we select these vertices right here, and then just press Alt-R, you'll see that that it's rotated perfectly along the pivot point, a nice even distribution of faces. And you can change the amount right here, so something like 3 steps should be fine. But you notice that's in the opposite, that's going in the wrong direction. Well, we can change that in the angle over here, -90, and there we go. And then just bring that up. And then to finish this off, just scale that in. There we go, something like that. Oh, and then of course, rotate it so the up direction is pointing in the Z. Okay, there we go. And then just press Control N to flip those normals. Okay, so we got that. Let's bring back our little leaf here. And this is almost ready. What we're going to do first, though, is to UV unwrap this. So when we go to further texture paint this, we're not going to be UVing, all the leaves one by one. Essentially, we're going to do it once, and then we're going to duplicate it, and it's going to copy over. So let's do that really quick. And actually, I'm going to change this window I have over here into a UV image editor. Okay, and then basically I'm going to go to top view. Press A to select everything, U, and then project from view. Make sure it's, actually from bounds I guess would work, but from view also works. And then just scale that up. Okay. And now, that's UV unwrapped. It's kind of a quick and dirty way to do it without doing UV seams. which I might go into further detail in another video. So stay tuned if you want to see that video, or if you really want to see it, then make a comment, and I will do my best to make that. Okay, so let's bring these two layers together, and let's make the origin point, or the pivot point of this leaf to be the actual origin point. So we can do that simply by, let's just drag that up a little bit, and Shift Control Alt C, origin of 3D cursor, and now it rotates along there. Okay, let's start to get this situated. Something like that. Scale that along this end. Okay, so now what we're going to do is turn on our proportional editing, and then just move all this into position, something along these lines. Okay, then we're going to do the same for the top right here. Basically try to get a nice curvy, natural appearance to these leaves. Ooh, didn't mean to zoom in that much. Alright, let's even these out a little bit more. Actually, I think we can scale these up a little bit more. And you notice, see, that's the point. You gotta be careful when working in edit mode, because if you move anything, the origin point stays the same, but your mesh is not in the same spot. So you want to be careful that that you're aware of that when you're editing your mesh in edit mode. But let's move this back up. Let's make it a little bit bigger, something like that. Okay, just place it along that line, and then basically from here it's now just, I don't want to say rinse and repeat, but it's basically just try and overlap and try to create a grouping of leaves that looks semi organic and not too mechanical. So when you're placing these, you want to try and like not have a exact mirror copy like this. That just looks, I mean, some plants have that, but it's pretty clear that you just mirrored it and then just flipped it over an axis. That's what I'm trying to get at. So instead, you can just do a slight axis, like do a slight little turn, something like that. It just helps create more believability when you're creating this. Okay, now let's, if you take a look at what I did previously, you see that we have differing sizes and whatnot. So that's what we're going to be trying to go for. So let's do that. Let's bring this down a little bit. Let's duplicate this again. Flip it here. One more time. Just trying to make it look organic. Now we have to bring these little stems out just so they're not totally going into the plant. Something along those lines. Okay, bring that out just a tad. Okay, now, actually, not yet. I'm just going to change the pivot point from right here, and then just scale them down a little bit. Ooh, make sure you're in object mode for when you're doing that. Shift S, selection the cursor to selection. Always get those two mixed up. There we are. Maybe scale that one up a little bit. And then do the same for this. Okay. And maybe what we'll do, we'll duplicate it. Actually, you know what? Let's delete that. Duplicate that one. Bring that up. And try to fit this guy right here in the... So it's kind of covering up that, you know, kind of annoying little hole we have there. I mean, alternatively, we could always just close that so it's not as apparent. Just something like that. Bring that down just a tad. Okay. And then as we're gonna be working our way down the like the little arm, maybe we can scale this in a little bit. It's a little too fat for my liking. Have a nice little curve to it by just beveling that edge and then adding some edge loops. There you go. It's nice, just some nice subtleties helps go a long way. Then we have to make sure that these are all lines still. Okay. There we are, something like that. Alright, then essentially, it's just taking these and dropping these down. Maybe scaling a little bit. Now, I suppose they get bigger as you go up the little arms, so maybe we can scale these up. And then keep these the same. Okay. Now let's put these on the outside. And maybe bring these up just a tad so you don't see where they are, where they're ending. So you basically get like a little bit of overlap, so you're not seeing that they're just totally sticking into the actual stalk themselves. Okay, just move that, and then really this is all just a matter of just moving and tweaking, and then just making these ever so slightly different, yet still remaining the same when you're creating this. Now let's try to just rotate these so that they're not like a perfect copy of the ones above them. Now I know I should be doing this in top view, but I find to just rotate around the model itself helps me get a better view and just angles and how everything looks. Okay. Take a look at this again. So I believe the last thing I want to add before I start tweaking these little individual leaves, just to make them, you know, have some subtle differences, is this little like I don't know, this little coat, this little hood thing that comes out into a point right here. So let's do that really quick. We can do that simply by just taking all these faces and then duplicating, and then right click, and then separate by selection, and then we can Alt S, just scale them up a little bit, and then take this one right here, and then make sure your proportional editing is on right here, and then just scale that something like that. Something along those lines. Okay, and you know what? I'm going to do that for this part right here as well, I think. I think I'm going to take this right here. I think these faces right here look good to me. Shift D, separate, and then just scale these up a little bit. And my overall idea for this is to hide the fact that these are just intersecting with the mesh right here. So we're going to try and camouflage those. Bring that down a little bit. Okay. Then we can possibly just bring this out like that. Just create a little more of a lip on it. Maybe bring this down a little bit. And then maybe scale it in. So there we go. Something like that. Yes, I think that is going to be definitely at a distance. You're not going to notice it as much. Again, and really this is the point of these ArcViz set pieces. They're just they're meant to be, you know, not crazy high detail, but just enough to sell the illusion that they are actually a plant. Now, if you're doing a close-up of this, obviously you would want to go into more detail, but for our purposes, I think this is going to be fine. Alright, and let's just do that, and then maybe just create a little bit more variety right there. So we can do the same thing for this down here. Add an edge loop, and then just bend it ever so slightly. Okay, something like that. Okay, so that is essentially how to make the leaves in a nutshell. No pun intended. Even if there was one, I don't know. Oh, it's been a long day, guys. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's a basic idea. I think for at least for our purposes, I'm gonna leave it. But you guys can feel free to, you know, add as many or as little leaves as you want. But this is the basic idea on how to do it. So I think just to speed this tutorial along, I'm gonna call this good. And then we're going to progress. So what we're going to do now is take everything and then press Control J to combine everything. And I'm going to smooth, or shade smooth rather. Okay, cool. Now let's go back to our initial scene, but actually first let's combine these two layers right here. And really it's just moving that over to there. Combining that, shade smooth. Okay, then let's bring that back over to our first layer. Okay. So before we duplicate this again, I just want to add a little bit more variety with this. Let's just again, really this part is just so each leaf doesn't look the same. So you can just select a couple of edge loops and then just rotate them. Just get some variety in it. So maybe something like this, like that. Oh, and actually, that is a good point. What's happened? Make sure that you're on connected. It's this little donut looking icon, and what that will do is it will just basically it will just affect the things that are separate objects. So for example, that's a separate object, so it will only affect the vertices in this. So make sure you have that on. That can be annoying if you don't know what's going on with that. So maybe something like that. Bend it right there. Something like that. I mean, for this part, you guys can just have fun with this. I mean, there's really no right way as to what the plants are supposed to look like. It's really just whatever feels good to you. and maybe change the stem or the actual ends of the leaf so they're not, you know, all perfect and all pointing out at the same angle. So maybe this one will go out like that. Okay, something like that. There we go. Honestly, I think we may want to have one more right here, to be perfectly honest, just like another little sleeve. Something like this. Let's duplicate those, and then just do this. Scale that up. Select these vertices, scale them down, and then just bring this out, something like that. And then, or actually, you know what? Let's undo that and then do this on the opposite side, or even better yet, let's just do it here, just to create more of a organic pattern. Nice, non-formulaic, kind of, not sort of random, but more like nature intended. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. All right, very cool. And then if you will see, each leaf again, since we already unwrapped it, there's no need to go back in and UV unwrap all those separately. So let's scale this down, and let's just bring this up to here. Get it around the same height, maybe something like that. Then basically all is from here is just, you know, lining them up and then just duplicating them essentially, and just arranging them. So you can see right here, this seemed a little thick to me, and now you'll notice that we have this inner one, so we can probably delete these inner ones right here. And by inner ones, I meant by this inner sleeve. That's what I was referring to. So now let's scale this down. Let me bring these little points down a little bit. Okay. And actually, if we look at this, I kind of like the way this formed, just a tad bit better. So let's see if we can. And you know what? I'm gonna leave it. Again, that's gonna be that's up to you guys to, you know, see how far you want to go with this. I'm just showing you the basic idea on how to do this. All right, so let's duplicate this a couple more times just to get some other branches on our little bamboo shoots. Okay, then this time we can bring this in, just make it a little bit shorter. Something like that. Maybe increase it a little bit. Okay. There we go. And then let's do one more time. Actually, no, this one could have a double. Well, let's make the one in the back have a double. Move that back a little bit. Okay. These seem a little bit tiny for my liking. So again, it's really just messing with the proportions just to see, you know, how they look in comparison with everything. You can scale these leaves up possibly if you don't like how they look. Just create, you know, I know I've been saying that a lot this tutorial, but really there's like a method to this madness that's going on. I mean, there really isn't any right answer. It's just, you know, playing around and seeing what looks good. Just trying different options. So maybe we'll grab this one here and something like that. Maybe bring that out just a tad bit more. There we go. Then maybe we can bring some of these, you know, out. Just create a little bit more elongated shape. Ooh, that one looks like it's there we go. Ooh. And let's take this edge loop right here. Actually, you know what? Let's take all this, expand that, and then just smooth that out. Increase our iterations over here. There we go. Okay. And you know what? Let's there we go. Offset that one just a little bit so it's not perfectly, you know, almost like, you know, a dude with biceps or whatnot. That just seems silly to have that. Yeah. So essentially, this is the process, guys. Now, you can go further to make your leaves look, you know, more unique, more organic. Maybe you can rotate them just, you know, a tad bit more, so they're not a perfect 90 degrees. Actually, I would recommend doing that. You know, even if it's like a degree or two, it helps just create that little nugget of extra realism and less computer imagery. There we go. Something like that. Okay, one last thing before I wrap this up. I know it's been kind of a long one, so thank you for bearing with me. What I want to do is it's really simple. Add a quick displacement map to these actual bamboo shafts. Again, that's going to just create some nice realism, some nice randomness, just so they're not a perfect cylinder up and down. So we can do that really simply by going over to the properties panel and then doing add modifier and then displace right here. Okay, now as you can see, that's way too big, way overblown. It just looks like a blobby mess. But now if we go over to the texture settings right here, click new, and then under the type right here, just go for clouds. Clouds is a generic type of, you know, good thing to go to, almost as like a old reliable as a source, just to get some initial you know, mesh movement in there. Alright, so now we go back to our actual modifier. You notice that something very small is going to be what we're after. So honestly, I would recommend anything under 0.1. That seems to yield the best results, because we're looking for subtlety here. Nothing too overblown that's obvious that you've used a displacement map. So even that, I would argue, might be a little too much. So maybe let's go to 0.075. And then let's shift select all of our other shafts, and then shift click the one that we just put the displacement map on, just so it's the parent, and then do Control L and modifiers. And what that's going to do is make links to all the other child selections that we made, and it's going to apply that modifier to them. And then from here we can, you know, mix it up a little bit, so just so they're not all using the same strength. Again, very, very subtle. Very subtle, makes all the difference. I can probably toggle it right here if you see. Just to create that extra level and that little cherry on top. Okay, so I believe that is all I want to cover in this part. Thank you guys so much for staying with me with this. I know it's kind of a long one. There's a lot to explain, and I'm trying my best to break it down in a simple yet comprehensive manner. So thank you very much, and in part 3 we're going to be going into the actual creation of the little pot that we're going to be storing these in, and then if we have time we might go into using a particle system to create the rocks that will anchor our bamboo plants into the pot itself. So thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys in the next one.